Chapter 11. Evan, you need to tell me exactly what he said. Those dogs are under my care, and if you think you're going to keep secrets about Fillmore and Riley, you can fuck right off. Flora followed Evan into the house. She slammed the door shut behind them, and the clatter sent Evan's hands flying to his ears. You don't want to know, he winced. It's only going to mess with your head. She grabbed his arm, her strong fingers digging in deep. That's not your decision to make. You tell me what he said, or you can get the fuck out of this house. I mean it. Evan could already tell she meant it from her body language. It was clear she was ready to reject him physically if necessary. They glared at each other, but after a painful silence, something must have shifted in Evan's gaze because Flora's eyes softened. Please, she implored. I can't protect them if I don't know what's going on, and I can't live my life with you superglued to my hip. Evan unlatched Flora's grip and guided her to the sofa. She resisted briefly. I'm not the little woman who needs to sit down to get bad news. No, you're definitely not, but allow me to pretend I have some way of easing this for you. Benny jumped onto her lap, and Flora's hand automatically began to massage his narrow chest. Evan hitched his legs sideways on the couch. He started to speak, stalled, and sighed heavily before trying again. He said, if he decides he's coming for the dogs, there's nothing we can do to stop him. Flora's face went white and her hand stopped stroking. Benny grumbled and scratched his nails into her leg, demanding more. Flora, this is about more than a single encounter on the fence. It feels personal, and the only other person with a vested interest here is your boss. Despite herself, Flora began to feel wobbly. She registered that Benny was leaving welts even through her jeans and lifted him to the floor, noticing her hand shaking. That's not the worst of it. He insinuated he was involved with Trike losing his leg. No, she moaned. Evan gave her hand a quick squeeze and went to get a glass of water, afraid she might go into shock. God knows the willies were nibbling at him too, but Evan didn't know Flora as well as he thought. By the time he sat back down and handed her the glass, she was vibrating with fury. What are we going to do? I'm so fucking angry I can't see straight. Trike's fucking leg, and if I can't stop something similar happening. Sweetheart, we'll just have to watch them like a hawk while we figure out a game plan. We should tell Bobby, though, straight away. I just had no clue which way my head was on last night. Flora nodded. Having another ally right now sounded good, especially one with some authority. With Fiona's help, Bobby might even take it more seriously. Can I borrow your computer? Why? What are you going to do? First, I'm going to search Lady Jemima Gartside-Smith, see what I can find out. Flora nodded, struggling not to fidget while the computer coughed to life, its fan whirring like a death rattle. After 10 minutes, Evan snorted in disgust. She might as well not exist. She didn't go public with her lottery win, and trying the name in connection to Brigley Hall only brings up poodle references. There's not even any pictures of her with the dogs. She will have used a professional handler. It's the best way to win at the level she's aiming for. Did you try playing Jemima Smith? Fiona said that was her married name up until a while ago. He tapped away again and shook his head. Not much better, just links to Imran Khan's ex-wife and a kid singing on YouTube. Flora remained deep in thought. The person with the biggest axe to grind would surely be her ex-husband. If they divorced before her windfall, I can't see her sharing the proceeds. Do you think there's a chance that's who he is? Evan turned to her and beamed broadly, raising a tiny one from Flora in return. I bet you're right. Call Fiona and see if she knows what he looks like. Watching her trying to curtail Fiona's response was an exercise in patience, but eventually she managed to extricate herself. God, I'm glad she's on our side. I wouldn't like to face off against her. Flora rubbed her face, the stress making her adrenal glands work overtime. Apart from the fact it sounds like he's gained about 3 stone of body fat, I think we're talking about the same person. She said he's about 5'10", lean and rugged looking, with weird grey eyes and a penchant for leather. He wasn't one to mix with the locals, and no one ever saw him that much. They lived in a rented farm cottage on the other side of Brigley Prior. What's his name? Gabriel Smith. Evan pummeled the keyboard again, flipping it around on his knee to face Flora. "Hello, asshole," he said, as Flora looked at the screen and shuddered. The photo was a courthouse snapshot, an online news article chronicling Smith's remand to prison for 18 months. The charges were illegal gaming and aggravated assault. Well, who'd have thought it? Fresh out of prison 3 months ago. Evan skimmed the relevant text. Done for rigging bets on illegal cockfights. But I'm betting that was simply scratching the surface. Flora's hands twisted in her lap. I'm going to be sick. I can't believe how somebody can do something so savage. She bounced off the couch, covering her mouth as she paced back and forth. Try not to think about the specifics, Flora. If you get bogged down in the horror of it, you'll lose the advantage of being smarter than him. We're going to handle this together, you and me. But how? Jesus, do you think Lady Jemima was helping him back then? Realistically, I think she had to have been. So apart from the fact all these dogs are in mortal danger, I'm also guaranteed to lose my job and my home again. I know that's irrelevant, but it's not irrelevant. It's okay to be worried about it. Fucking hell, fucking hell, fucking hell, she complained. Evan had the nerve to stifle a smile. Sweetheart, it's a crime to hear such words coming from those sweet, rosy lips, and it only serves to enhance the shape of your dimples. Not the effect you're aiming for, I'm sure. Flora ignored him and slumped back into the sofa. So now I'm committed to self-destruct yet again. What's our next move? Evan started to respond when the phone rang in the kitchen. Flora grumbled. I better get it. I'm expecting a call from someone about homing Benny or Parsley. She came back moments later with the cordless in her hand, looking even more resigned than when she left. Your pimp wants a word. She didn't bother covering the receiver. Evan closed his eyes in disbelief. That was the last thing he wanted to hear right now. He stood to go into the kitchen, reluctant to inflict the details on her, but as he reached for the phone, she stuffed it between her bosoms, making him profoundly jealous of an inanimate object. Do you think Siobhan knows about this? Evan gave it a little consideration. She must know Smith did jail time, but maybe she didn't know the specifics. Let's give her the benefit of the doubt, but not tell her what we know. If Siobhan's got a part in all this, it will soon become clear enough. And you're still happy to be a stud lackey in the meantime? Believe me, Flora, I'm not happy about any of this shit. Evan retrieved the handset as she slumped onto the sofa, 6 pairs of doleful eyes watching her. She felt overwhelmed by the burden of keeping them safe. The almost paralysing fear that ran through her that day on the fence had only just subsided. Now she was going to be living with that feeling every day, and the best-case scenario was that she'd get her boss's shithead hubby arrested and lose her job again. Flora was ready to surrender, jam all the dogs in her car and head back to Ripon. She wanted away from this mess. For those few minutes while Riley rubbed her ears along her knee, Flora didn't even care that Evan was arranging a date with another woman. Frankly, it was the least of her problems. Up the road in Brigley Hall, Lady Jemima put down the house phone just as Siobhan came in through the French doors. Everything all right, Jay? You look a bit tense. Fuck you, Siobhan. I've told you not to bloody well call me that. It's like being part of the fucking Sesame Street fucking alphabet song. I'm going into Newmarket. I'll be gone at least a couple of hours. Siobhan stifled a wince at Jay's fingernails down a chalkboard tone. Okay, no problem. Jemima stalked away, heading towards her bedroom. The sound of wardrobe doors opening and slamming met Siobhan's ears. No doubt some triviality had got her cousin's knickers in a twist, and she shrugged it off, moving to the dining table where her laptop was set up. It was odd that it wasn't in standby mode, despite not being used for half an hour. Siobhan opened the browser to check the internet history, but the cache had mysteriously cleared. That bitch, she muttered to herself. How had Jemima figured out the password? She quickly went into the settings and changed it. Perhaps J.Cowbag.Smith wasn't creative enough. God knows the bloody woman had ears like a hawk and a talent for catching her using bovine adjectives. Siobhan rubbed the back of her neck. She wasn't too worried that Jemima might now know about her business. Lately she'd become so demoralised that she just didn't care. Siobhan had even implied there was another prospect waiting. It was almost the truth. With another few quality men on her books, she could tell Jemima to go stuff herself, and that thought was often the only thing that got her through the day. She caught some movement out of the window, and what she saw there made her bite down hard on her tongue. Across the way, on the other side of the garden wall, was the face of a man Siobhan had hoped never to see again. He had the gall to wave at her, and said something to a startled-looking Lucy, who was busy cleaning up dog poop. Then he disappeared like the evil bastard C-word she'd never once dared call him. Bloody Gabriel Smith. Now all frigging hell will break loose. Lady Jemima broke the speed limit on her way to Newmarket, cranking the window and blasting Beethoven to the stratosphere. It was all part of the game. The village plebs, scowling as she drove at 50 over the pedestrian crossing, would never know her real taste was Black Sabbath or Motorhead. Maybe it wasn't normal, but these little deceptions were what made her thrive. She chuckled, congratulating herself on once more getting one over on Siobhan. The idiot had no idea she could mimic her accent, successfully booking the services of her escorts right out from under her nose. Jemima had slept with both Luca and Nathan several times now, paying them in cash and going undiscovered, which was no fun at all. The novelty of them was wearing thin. They were too pretty and too compliant, and for a while now she had been monitoring the website, hoping some new man would get added to the mix. Jemima tired easily of men, even cheating on Gabriel occasionally, but unlike him, she'd had the courtesy never to give him lasting consequences from it. Desperate for a little stress buster, her eyes had lit up when she finally found a new set of details on Siobhan's website. Gotcha, she said to herself, as her eyes skim-read the bio. There was no picture, but the vital statistics sounded pleasing, and it wasn't like she had a type. She screwed anybody that took her fancy. Even better if there was an added edge such as a wedding ring or an element of danger. As a teenager in Wales, outdoor sex was her thing, wherever and whenever, whoever could provide a momentary escape. She lingered over the name. Evan. He might even be Welsh. The other men used their real names, so she guessed this might be his. She went into Siobhan's email account, glad she was anal enough to keep phone details of all her contacts, and the mystery escort was no different. What the hell is this? Jemima checked the digits twice, because the phone number matched the one to the lodge, and only the idea of swift retribution tempered the anger she felt at such deceit. Oh, Flora, how sweet, sliding in your live-in lover without a word of please may I, and he's either something pretty special, or you're more pathetic than I thought, because why would you put up with this? Unless you don't know? No, you must do. I hope you do. I hope it makes you burn thinking about him with other women. And right when you least expect it, I'm going to slap you with a variety of ways I had him to. Are you sure you're going to be okay? You promise you won't go out without me? I'm not stupid, Evan, and I don't have a death wish. I know. I just hate to leave you mulling over this shit. He was visibly frustrated, stalking back and forwards. I'm only going out for lunch. I'll make excuses and come back as quickly as I can. It's fine, Evan. I'm better when I mull, and believe it or not, I'm usually pretty good at figuring something out. Fiona's sending Bobby over when he's free, so help is on the way. Flora glanced up and managed to smile wanly. You look great. I'm almost jealous of whoever she is. Honestly, I'll be glad to get it over with. You still need a haircut, though. You're starting to look too pretty. Well now, I can't have that, sweetheart. Flora blushed as Evan bent and kissed her cheek, getting a long wet lick from Benny before he had a chance to retreat. "Don't forget it's extra for the added dog spit." Evan's gaze lingered on Flora, admiring her attempt to be flippant. There were thoughts on his mind too, but he hadn't a clue how to begin voicing them. Instead, he picked up Flora's car keys. "You sure this is okay?" He jingled them at her. She nodded and dislodged Benny. "I'm going to lie down for a while. I feel like I've been doped." Evan rummaged a hand through his hair and blew out a harsh breath. The situation made him feel totally fucking kneecapped. He called out to her retreating form, "I'm taking the mobile with me and I've left the number in the kitchen. You call me the second there's any trouble. Do you hear me, Flora?" He heard her mutter some brief acknowledgement, so he grabbed his jacket and left. Flora crept back into the room. She peered through the net curtains and watched Evan pull away, and once he was out of sight, she sat on the sofa and rebooted the computer. It was so simple, she didn't know why she hadn't thought of it sooner. He'd even unwittingly given her the idea himself. If she wanted to know who he was, it would take just a few taps on a keyboard. Flora was transfixed as she followed the links for Evan McElroy. It had been remarkably easy once she'd played with the spelling a bit. And there he was, in full, glossy colour, looking like a frigging movie star. The picture was a still from an author's book jacket, the charmingly ginger Scot grinning winsomely in all his unshaven glory, wearing a white self-striped shirt with the sleeves rolled up. His top button was left undone, and the red paisley tie around his neck was artfully skewed. The whole thing was not a look Flora would have pictured, but he was the epitome of sexy in the city. He also looked light years out of her league. And a writer? Well, what the hell was he doing here? Cabbage Country was no holiday destination, and why would he keep his occupation a secret? Maybe all Evan's secrecy was the result of a nervous breakdown. Perhaps there was someone she should contact to let them know he was safe. Flora made a note of some of his titles, brought them up online and downloaded free extracts. He was a bit all over the place in his subject matter, and no surprise she'd never heard of him. History books and real-life studies wouldn't be her go-to choice. Worse still, he was almost better known for dating freakishly beautiful stick women. Flora's unease magnified. Eavesdroppers and snoops never did hear good news, and she'd encroached on his personal space. But hadn't he been doing the same to her? Oh God, that was it. Why had he been snooping under the bed? He couldn't be so desperate for material that he would write about her. She wouldn't even fill one chapter. Flora hurled herself off the sofa. She didn't care that it was barely 11:30. She was going to drink beer. Drink beer right now. Evan tapped on the door to room 337. He was pissed. The client had agreed to meet him in the lobby, but when he arrived, all he could see were businessmen. He'd stalked to reception and had them call her room, but the response was he should come up because she wasn't ready. Evan had a bad feeling about this. He had no desire to get stuck in a hotel room with a strange woman, especially when his mind was full of the problems at Brigley Hall. The door cracked open, and a tall, emaciated brunette eyed him with almost clinical interest. "Evan?" Her hands drifted to the lapels of her black silk robe. "Hi, Miss Bullock? If you need more time, I can wait downstairs. It's not a problem." "Call me Gemma, Evan, please. I insist you come in, and I'm sorry for the short notice. I was here for a meeting, but it was put back a day at the last second. It sounds silly, but I get anxious when I'm in a strange town with no company." She laughed, but Evan was too distracted to have patience, silently agreeing that she was silly. He never understood the big deal with needy women. Were they so insecure that unless they had company the world ceased to turn? Just watch some damn telly and chill out. He stifled a sigh. A few weeks ago, he might have dated a specimen just like this. Jemima smiled as Evan reluctantly crossed the threshold. She'd purposely reserved one of the cheaper options. It wasn't her plan to give him space to manoeuvre. Evan skimmed his eye over the room, considering how for the second time in 2 days he felt unattracted to reasonably attractive women. This one, admittedly, was a bit borderline for his taste. She had unnaturally piercing eyes, and since he'd once gone to bed with a girl with 2 green eyes and woken up with the spawn of David Bowie, he suspected Gemma's had some kind of unnatural help. The hair also looked unreal. It was lush and full and trailed to the middle of her back, but he didn't care for running hands through a woman's hair and getting fast in her extensions. What she did have was lovely bone structure, classical and elegant, but she needed to gain a few pounds because as she was, he could have sliced a steak on her cheekbones. Conversely, she had unnaturally full breasts for someone of her weight, and there was something uncomfortable about looking at her. Evan tried to ignore his prickling scalp by looking for a safe place to sit. There weren't many choices that didn't involve the bed. Gemma turned towards the bathroom as he perched on the chair at the doll-sized dressing table. Evan was glad of the reprieve when the door closed behind her. He shrugged out of his jacket, finding the heat in the poky room stifling. It would have been nice to put the TV on as a distraction, but he presumed that might seem a little rude. The client was paying for his full attention, after all. The toilet flushed, and he heard water running in the hand sink. Evan's eyes landed on the bed, and he groaned when he realised Gemma's clothes were laid out ready. Why the hell hadn't she taken them in there with her? Evan. Oh, that explained why. Gemma stood in the open doorway, backlit by the harsh fluorescent light from the bathroom. It was in sharp contrast with the gloomy late March daylight which barely penetrated the rest of the room. She was shockingly, excruciatingly naked. Evan shot upright and wondered how quickly he could make it to the door. Gemma, though, seemed balanced on the balls of her feet, ready to tackle him before he got there, and every lick of moisture in his mouth dissipated. Gemma, I think you've got the wrong escort. Maybe you should have tried to book one of the other guys. Don't say you don't do extras, Evan. No, I don't. His macho pride ordered him to try and save some face. I'm pretty new, sort of on probation. I only do platonic dates. Evan was doing his best not to stare at the raspberry red bullet nipples adorning a set of breasts that looked like deadly weapons. Gemma's sex was bare, and when combined with the skeletal frame, if it weren't for those breasts, she would look frighteningly prepubescent. She stepped closer, and Evan noted frown lines fighting against Botox. He couldn't be schooling his horror all that well. You don't find me attractive, do you? Hell, what was he supposed to say to that? No, it's not that. It's just I'm sort of involved with someone, and I can only justify this job if I'm not sleeping with the clients. I won't do anything to hurt her. And when you're no longer on probation, what happens then? Evan was silent. He couldn't come up with an answer for that. It's okay, I'm used to it. But not usually from someone I pay for sex. Professionals are usually good at hiding their distaste. Gemma, it's not like that. You're a beautiful woman, I'm very flattered. Evan's alarm factor spiralled as she burst into tears. I'm sorry. I've been anorexic for years. I know I look disgusting to you. I can't help it. Oh, bugger. He desperately did not know where to turn. Lady Jemima, however, was enjoying the little role play greatly. She was intensely proud of her body and worked hard to keep it in this exact condition. Obviously, Evan had a thing for fat women, since he was sleeping with Flora, but if it got what she needed, she could play wounded and damaged. Jemima approached him. There was no pathway around the room without touching some part of her. Will you hold me, please, Evan? I get so lonely sometimes. Fuck was all he could think. What if he walked out of here and she did something to hurt herself? Seemingly of their own accord, his legs moved stiffly towards his client. Evan bit his lip as he chastely slid his arms under hers and around her waist, taking great pains to go nowhere near her breasts or backside. He flinched as Gemma snaked around him, holding on tight. One leg insinuated itself between his knees. She was tall. Even barefoot, she was only about 4 inches shorter than him, which put her mouth alarmingly close. Despite himself, Evan registered her exotic and no doubt expensive scent. It made him feel a little light-headed, but maybe that was the panic setting in. One long arm wrapped around his neck as she nuzzled into him, and the other drifted low down on his spine. A single bony finger slipped just inside his waistband and lingered. "May I kiss you?" she asked. Evan took a breath to answer no, but she robbed him of free will and pressed a line of hot caresses along his neck. Open-mouthed, soft, a little flick of the tongue accompanying each one. Her breasts raked through the thin fabric of his smart new dress shirt. Shit, he didn't want this, but his body was responding. Against his overheating skin, Evan felt Gemma's lips part in a triumphant smile. "You're getting hard, and you're such a big boy, too." She pushed her leg further in against him and rode his thigh, her pelvis rubbing his growing erection. Evan tried to push her away. "No, please don't. I don't want to do this." Gemma's answer was to unbutton his shirt, her long fingernails catching his flesh with every button gained. He caught her wrist. "Please listen. You're lovely, but I can't do this." "I understand. It's asking too much. Your girlfriend is very lucky to have you." Evan relaxed a little as Gemma's grip on him loosened, which is why he didn't react fast enough when she dropped to her knees. With lightning speed, she snapped apart the placket of his jeans. In a bid to conserve his funds, Evan had not splashed out on new underwear when he went shopping, so until his old ones returned from their visit to Flora's laundry hamper, he'd been forced to fly commando. Jemima hissed in delight when he literally fell straight into her hands. Evan's brain dived into a tailspin. With a valiant struggle through gritted teeth, he moaned, "I'm not going to have sex with you, Gemma." "I know, but you'll make me feel so good if I can please you. Let me, Evan, please." She grabbed hold of his cock and stroked him sensuously with almost painful precision. Evan's hips tilted towards her, and he was appalled at the ease with which she turned the tables. An alarming vision of Flora's rounded hips and lush bottom popped into his mind, and he moaned aloud as Gemma's lips wrapped around him. She sucked him down deep. What he was doing was unforgivable. In his head, Evan knew this, but his head also cited a free pass because he wasn't with Flora. Though something about the experience didn't ring true, Gemma was no shy innocent. In sharp contrast to her insecurity, she knew exactly how to render a man shameful. Gemma's eyes flicked up to his, but all he could see was Flora. Flora, who hadn't gone down on him yet, and God, he wanted to have that opportunity. Wet heat enveloped him as Gemma's lips surrounded him. Back and forth she sucked him, her hand pumping him between each glide of her tongue, red talons flashing. The image disturbed him, and he tried to pull away. It wasn't right. He didn't want this. The old him would have done this, the instant gratification seeker. Jemima sensed his retreat and increased momentum, hollowing her cheeks and making him groan aloud. She could feel him grow harder in her mouth, sensed the growing throb as he prepared to come. Evan was close to the edge, but it wasn't good enough for her. Succeeding in pulling off a blowjob wasn't nearly a sweet enough victory. She furiously yanked his jeans further down his legs and ripped apart the remaining 2 shirt buttons. He was magnificent, but for her, the thrill was in the illicit nature of the act, and that alone was powering her towards a climax. Evan was appalled with himself, yet also immobilized. His cock was on fire, and any second now he was going to come. Gemma sucked him down once more and grabbed hold of his backside, sending him surging down her throat, enough to make him dizzy and off balance. Then she was gone. Evan's eyes opened and found her spread eagle across the bed, hips splayed, Aroused flesh bared to his gaze. She was holding her legs apart and ready for him. "Fuck me," she begged. "Come on, finish inside me." He gulped. It should have made for an irresistible image. He was teetering on the edge of a massive orgasm. It would be the most natural thing in the world to just fall on top of her. Punish her with long deep thrusts for forcing him to do this. But look at her, his inner angel warned. You don't want her. You don't want knife-edge ribs raking into yours. Evan breathed in a soft, deep, cleansing breath, feeling the truth of it. No, Evan wanted a fleshy tummy to cushion and caress him, and round, pillowy breasts to rest his sleepy head on. More than that, he just wanted everything about Flora, here, now, soothing him. Without a word of explanation, and averting his gaze, Evan yanked his trousers back up and fastened the buttons over his straining cock. It was painful, the stiff new denim dragging coarsely over saliva-slickened flesh, but he deserved it for being an unmitigated arsehole. He didn't bother attempting to fasten his ruined shirt, just grabbed his jacket and threw it on quickly. Gemma tried to pull him down to the mattress. "What do you think you're doing?" I said. "Fuck me. I want you to fuck me so hard." Evan's voice came out cold and low, his anger at himself and her flaring. "And I said no, and I meant it. I'm sorry, but you shouldn't have done this and I shouldn't have let you. You don't need to pay me." Gemma's eyes went crazed and Evan felt strangely vulnerable. If she turned on him, how could he restrain her? He would be the one facing trouble. Gone was his concern for her fragile psyche. She looked ready to commit murder, totally and utterly unhinged. "You bastard. You walk out of here now and I'll ruin you." "Love, there's a good chance you already have." Evan didn't waste another breath and strode to the door in 4 long strides. The image of Gemma's brutally enhanced body seared into his brain almost as powerfully as the screech of rage ringing in his ears. The heavy hotel door clanged shut behind him. He ran to the stairwell, unwilling to wait the time it would take for the elevator.